The text wasn't meant for him. 3 words, no punctuation. She typed fast, hit send, put her phone down, and picked it up 2 seconds later and froze. The contact name wasn't Jess. It was a number saved 6 weeks ago after a wrong call she never followed up on. Labeled simply, Unknown M. The message had delivered. 2 gray ticks, then blue, read immediately. Raina stopped breathing. The typing bubble appeared. 7 seconds. It felt like a lifetime. Then his reply came, and she sat down on her kitchen floor. That's the first honest thing anyone said to me in 3 years. Who is this? Raina Calloway was 26 years old and drew the inside of human bodies for a living. Not paintings, not portraits. Precise, accurate illustrations that ended up in surgical textbooks and operating rooms. She was careful. She was exact. She did not make mistakes with details. Except tonight. Tonight she had sent 3 words to the wrong number. And the wrong number was typing back. She put the phone face down on the floor. Sat with it. 11 minutes. She made arguments to herself. 1, she didn't know who this was. 2, the number had come from a wrong call 6 weeks ago. Someone asking for a man named Carver. Wrong number. They hung up without apology. 3, whoever this was had read her message immediately, which meant unusual hours. Unusual life. 4, she picked up the phone and read his message again. That's the first honest thing anyone said to me in 3 years. A lonely person. A dangerous one. In her experience, those were rarely different things. She typed, wrong number, I apologize. It buzzed back immediately. Don't apologize, who is this? She didn't answer that night. But she thought about it. She thought about the first honest thing anyone said to me in 3 years, and what kind of life produced that sentence. She drew the internal truth of human bodies for a living. The real architecture underneath the surface. The things that kept people alive that nobody ever saw. She had a habit of looking underneath things. The sentence underneath "who is this" was lonelier than the words themselves. She fell asleep thinking about it. Woke up thinking about it. Drew 3 pages of a cardiac surgery manual thinking about it. At 2 in the afternoon, she picked up her phone. Typed, someone who also has bad days, sorry about the text. Put it down. 1 new message. What kind of bad day ends in those 3 words? She sat down. Started typing. She didn't fully understand that she had just made a decision. They texted for 3 weeks before she knew who he was. She had Googled the number twice and found nothing, which was itself information she filed without examining too closely. He didn't offer his name. She didn't ask. Because asking felt like it would change something she wasn't ready to change. He asked about her day. She told him, specifically, honestly, without performing a version of herself. He responded with questions that proved he had read every word. She asked about his. He answered the same way. Precise, real, with careful edges around certain things she noticed and didn't push against. She told her roommate Jess about it on a Thursday evening. Jess put down her fork. You've been texting a stranger for 3 weeks and you don't know his name. I know he takes his coffee black, hasn't slept more than 5 hours in 2 years, reads history, and thinks most people are performing rather than living. Jess stared at her. Raina, I know. Do you, though? His name arrived the way important things do. Not announced, just present. She had sent him a photograph at week 4. Not of herself. Of a medical illustration she had just finished, because it was the best thing she had drawn in a year, and she wanted to show someone who would actually look at it. He looked at it. The typing bubble started and stopped 3 times before his response arrived. You drew this? Yes. You draw the truth of things that are usually hidden. She stared at her screen. That is the most accurate description of my job anyone has ever given me. A pause. Then, my name is Dante. She looked at the name, typed, Raina. Raina. Just that, her name back. The way it sat in his message felt different from how names usually sit in text. She put her phone down, picked it up. Why now? Because you showed me something real. It seemed fair to give you something real back. She found out who he was on a Saturday morning. Accidentally. Completely. A news alert. A last name he had mentioned in passing about a building in Manhattan. A Google search she started casually. and finished with her coffee going cold and her hand very still on the phone. Dante Varro. The Varro family. 4 generations. An operation the FBI had been trying to dismantle for 20 years without success. A name that made other names in the city move carefully. She sat with her cold coffee for a long time. Then she picked up the phone. Typed, "Dante, are you Dante Varro?" The typing bubble appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then, yes. One word, no deflection, no explanation. Just, yes, I see. Are you going to stop responding? She looked at that question for a very long time. Put the phone down. Went for a walk. Came back 6 hours later. Typed, "I don't know yet." The 6 hours were a real conversation with herself. Not performed. The private kind where you ask uncomfortable questions and require honest answers. She asked what she actually knew about him. Not the name, not the family. Him, the man who had responded to 3 angry words with curiosity instead of threat. Who had asked every day for 4 weeks how she was and meant it. Who had said, "You draw the truth of things that are usually hidden," and understood her work in 1 sentence better than people who had known her for years. She didn't arrive at a clean answer. She arrived at an honest one. She was already somewhere past the point where stopping was simple. The choice wasn't between safe and unsafe. It was between honest and dishonest. She picked up the phone. "I'm not going to stop responding, but I need you to know that I know, and I need you to never lie to me about anything." His response took 4 minutes. "I have not lied to you once. I will not start. That is the most anyone has ever asked of me, and the easiest thing I have ever agreed to." They met for the first time at week 7. Not a date. Neither of them called it that. A coffee shop in Midtown Public, her choice, her time. She arrived first because she was a person who arrived first to things she was nervous about. She needed to know the geography before the variable arrived. She was sitting with her coffee when he walked in. She recognized him from nothing. There were no findable photographs she had checked. But she recognized him from the way the room adjusted. Not dramatically. Just a slight recalibration of attention. The way a space responds to something it registers as significant before the conscious mind processes why. He was tall. Dark. Still in the deliberate way rather than the passive way. Everything held, nothing absent. He saw her immediately. Crossed the room. Sat down. "You're smaller than I imagined. You're more real than I imagined. Is that good or bad? Ask me in an hour." The hour became 3. She had planned 45 minutes with a clean exit. What she hadn't planned for was the specific experience of a conversation that went where it needed to go without social scaffolding. He talked the way he texted, directly, specifically, with the edges in the right places. She talked the way she drew, precisely with attention to the internal structure of things. They argued about a book they had both read. Discovered they had opposite interpretations of the same ending. Spent 40 minutes on it with the particular pleasure of 2 people who enjoy being genuinely challenged. She told him about her work, the way some of her drawings had ended up in surgical training materials present in operating rooms where lives were saved. He was quiet for a moment. "Then, you save people's lives through accuracy. That's a significant overstatement." "Is it?" She thought about it. "Maybe not." "I thought so." She looked at him across the coffee shop table. She understood exactly what she was walking into. Dangerous. Complicated. Real. She didn't stop. The trouble built slowly, not in a single moment, but in the accumulation of small ones that each meant nothing individually and meant everything together. He remembered every detail she mentioned and referenced it later, proof that he thought about their conversations after they ended. She found herself saving things during the week. Articles. A photograph of a building with an interesting history. A detail from a lesson she knew would make him ask a specific question, with the specific intention of telling him. Her roommate Jess met him on a Sunday and spent 2 hours asking questions with no filter, because Jess had no filter. And Dante, it turned out, found genuinely unfiltered people restful after a lifetime of performed ones. Jess asked him what he did for work. "I manage the family's interests." That's what people say when the specifics are complicated. "Yes." Jess looked at Raina, then back at him. "Are you good to her?" Dante looked at Raina for a moment, then back at Jess. "I'm trying, and I don't quit." A long moment. Okay. Jess went to make tea. Raina looked at Dante. He looked at her. She's the most important person in my life. I know, that's why I answered her honestly. His world touched hers at the edges in ways that required conscious decisions. Not dramatic intrusions, the consistent, low-level reality of who he was. Evenings he went silent and returned changed in a specific way she learned to read. Two men who appeared outside her building one afternoon, not threatening, just present, and gone when she looked again. That evening, the two men outside my building today, a precaution. For what? He told her, the broad shape of it, the reason, the duration. She listened. Next time you tell me before, not after. It was a precaution. I know what it was. I am not a civilian who needs protecting from information. I'm a person in your life and I need to be treated like one. A beat? You're right. I know. I'm not used to being corrected. I teach the inside of the human body to surgeons. I have no fear of difficult conversations. The first real test came at month 3, not from his world, from hers. A former client called, not renewing her contract. She found out through a colleague that afternoon. The real reason wasn't the work. The real reason was a complaint. Someone at the publishing house had looked into her personal associations and found them problematic for the company's public image. Her name, connected to his. She sat in her apartment after the call and felt the cold, specific shape of a consequence she had known was possible. She didn't call Dante immediately. She sat with it for 2 hours. Asked herself, as she had in week 7, as she would keep asking herself honestly, whether she was still choosing this with full information. The answer came back the same way it always did. Yes, informed, eyes open. She called him, told him what had happened. Her voice was level. When she finished, he was quiet. I'm not telling you to fix it. I know. I'm telling you because you told me you'd never lie to me, and I'm holding both of us to that standard. This is what standing next to you costs sometimes. A breath. I need you to know that I know that. Very quietly. Raina, I'm still here, I just needed to say it out loud. The publishing contract was replaced within a week. Not through Dante. She had been explicit about that and she had checked. Through a legitimate referral. A colleague who had seen her portfolio 2 months prior and had been meaning to reach out. The new contract was larger than the lost one, better terms, more creative freedom. She told him on a Thursday evening. Watched something cross his face that wasn't quite relief. Something else. What? You solved it yourself. I know. I know you know. A pause. It matters to me that you can. Why does it matter specifically that I can do it myself? He was quiet. Then because every person in my life needs something from me. You are the only person I have ever known who needed nothing from me except honesty. The apartment was very quiet. That's not entirely true. What do you need from me? She looked at him. I need you to stay. He looked at her across the room. That is the one thing I have never needed to be asked for. The situation had stretched for weeks when it finally broke on a Wednesday. Raina spent the day not knowing specifics, but she knew from the quality of his silence that something had shifted enormously. She kept working, a surgical atlas to finish. The human body did not pause for her anxiety and neither would her work. She drew the chambers of a heart with precise, accurate lines for 6 hours while her phone sat dark beside her. She sent one message, when you can. Not a question, not a demand, just when you can. He responded at night. Resolved, I'm coming. She put the kettle on. He arrived looking like a man who had spent 14 hours doing something that had cost something real, and had come here first, before anything else. She opened the door. He stood in the hallway with every controlled surface absent. Come in. He came in. She put tea in his hands. He sat at the kitchen table. She sat across from him. They stayed there for a long time, not saying much. It's over. Good. All of it, clean. Then drink your tea. He looked at her across the table. This woman who had made him tea and asked for nothing. And something in his face gave way completely. How are you real? Same way everyone is. Badly and with effort. She told him about her father on a night in month 4 when the rain was doing what late autumn rain does, and neither of them had anywhere to be. Her father had been a surgeon. Brilliant, precise. The kind of doctor whose name other doctors said with reverence. He had also been the kind of man who was present in every professional room and absent from every personal one. He could draw the exact internal structure of a human heart, and he never once asked what was inside mine. She said it without self-pity, as a fact. The way she stated anatomical facts, Dante listened completely, without preparing his response while she was still talking. Is that why you draw interiors? She had never thought about it that way. Sat with it. Maybe. Or maybe I draw them because I believe the inside of things is the most important part, and someone should pay attention to it. Someone should. Said it quietly, like it meant more than 3 words. She looked at the rain on the window. What about yours, your father? He built something that had rules. Some I would have chosen. Some I inherited and have spent 8 years revising. Are you still revising? Every day. That's the right answer. I know I wasn't performing it. I know you weren't. That's why it's the right answer. The first time she saw his world directly, not the edges, not the men outside her building, but the actual interior of it, was not planned. She had stopped by his office to drop off a book she had borrowed. Simple logistics. She had not factored in the meeting happening in the lobby when she arrived. 4 men she didn't know. The specific quality of conversation that stopped when she entered. The way everyone in the room reoriented around Dante the moment she appeared. She stood in the lobby with the book in her hand, and understood completely and suddenly what the word operation actually meant when it wasn't abstract. Dante crossed to her immediately, not with urgency, with the specific calm of someone managing 2 registers simultaneously. He took the book, said quietly, "Wait in my office 15 minutes. She went, sat in the chair across from his desk, looked at the room, controlled, orderly, expensive, the administrative surface of something that ran far deeper. When he came in, I understand it differently now. I know. That's not a complaint, it's information. What do you do with the information? The same thing I do with all information. I incorporate it accurately into the picture I'm drawing. And the picture is more complete now, not worse. Just complete. The danger arrived at month 5 in the form of a woman. Not a rival. Not a threat from his world in the conventional sense. Something more specific and more destabilizing. Her name was Celeste. She had been, Reina learned through a conversation she hadn't expected in a restaurant powder room, Dante's companion for 2 years before Reina. Celeste was elegant, composed, and had the specific look of a woman delivering a rehearsed message. He is not capable of the kind of life you are imagining. I want you to know that before you go further. Reina looked at this woman, clearly someone who had been hurt, clearly someone who believed what she was saying, possibly being used by someone else to deliver this message. Thank you for telling me. I'm going to ask him about it directly. Celeste looked slightly surprised. I don't make decisions about him based on what other people tell me. I make them based on what he shows me. That's not dismissing you. It's how I work. She went back to the table, told Dante flatly and completely what had just happened. He didn't look surprised. He looked like a man who had been waiting for a specific thing to arrive and was not pleased it had. Tell me, he told her. 2 years prior, a relationship that had been real in the specific limited way he had been capable of then. Present, honest in the areas he allowed himself to be honest, but ultimately bounded in ways he hadn't understood were boundaries until they were gone. Celeste had wanted more than the bounded version. The ending hadn't been clean. I was not who I am now. I was more closed than I had any right to be with someone who deserved openness. Is she being used by someone to reach you? A pause. Possibly. Do you still have feelings for her? No, I have responsibility for how it ended. Those are different things. I know they're different, I'm asking about both. Then the answer to both is no. She looked at him for a long moment. Okay. I needed to hear it directly. I know. You always do. And then something happened that she had not expected. Not from his world. Not from Celeste. From a name on her phone she didn't recognize. A voice she had never heard. 3 sentences. You should know what you're involved in. There are people who want to make an example of anyone close to him. You have 48 hours to walk away cleanly. The call ended. Reina sat very still. Looked at the wall of her apartment. 48 hours. She thought about what she knew about pressure, how it worked on structures, how it revealed weakness in the places you thought were solid, how the only way to know what something was made of was to apply force and watch. She thought about what she was made of. She picked up her phone.
Called Dante.
He answered on the first ring. Someone just called me. And you need to hear exactly what they said. He went very quiet on the other end, the kind of quiet that meant something was already moving. Read me the number. She did. Don't leave your apartment tonight. Dante. Reina, I need you to trust me for the next 12 hours. I trust you. I'm still not staying in my apartment. A pause. Then, where do you want to go? To you. Unless there's a reason I shouldn't. The silence lasted 2 seconds. There's no reason you shouldn't. There never has been. What happened in the next 12 hours was not something she could fully describe afterward. Not because it was violent, it wasn't, or not in ways she was present for, but because it was the concentrated version of everything she had understood abstractly now made entirely concrete. His world, the real interior of it, the people who moved when he spoke, the phone calls conducted in languages she didn't speak, the specific, controlled efficiency of a man who had built a structure and knew exactly which load-bearing elements to reinforce when pressure arrived. She sat in his office and drew, because that was what she did with her hands when the rest of her was absorbing information she couldn't yet categorize. He came in at 3 a.m. and found her at his desk with the sketchbook open. Sat across from her. It's handled. The people who called will not call again. She looked up. Are you all right? He looked at her, this woman sitting in his office at 3 a.m. drawing the interior of something and asking if he was all right. I don't know the last time someone asked me that, and meant it the way you mean it. Then you should answer it. I am. Now. She fell in love with him on a Tuesday. Not a significant date, not a moment that announced itself. She had made coffee, his because she knew how he took it, the way you learn the specific details of people who matter, and had turned around to find him watching her from the doorway of the kitchen with an expression she had never seen on him before. Not guarded, not managed, just open. What? Nothing. Everything. She set the coffee down, crossed the kitchen. He didn't move. She put her hand on his face, precisely, specifically the way she did everything that mattered, and said, I'm in love with you. I have been for a while. I'm saying it now because I don't believe in drawing the inside of something and pretending you can't see it. He was quiet. Then, I have been in love with you since you didn't answer me for 11 minutes and then typed, someone who also has bad days. And I understood that was you giving me the most honest version of yourself before you even knew my name. That was week 1. I know. You waited. You were worth waiting for. You are still worth it. You will keep being worth it. She had no argument with that. She kissed him, and Dante Varro, who had spent 8 years in rooms where everyone performed and no one meant anything, held the one person he had never had to perform for, and was finally completely still. 3 months later, she put her name on a medical atlas that went to print in 17 countries. He came to the publication dinner, sat beside her, said nothing for most of it, which was not absence she had learned, but the specific presence of someone who doesn't need to perform the fact that they're proud. On the way home, you didn't have to come. I know. You came anyway. You put your name on something that will be in operating rooms for 20 years. There is nowhere else I would have been tonight. She looked at him in the back of the car, the city moving past the windows. The man who had answered 3 angry words with curiosity, who had said, you draw the truth of things that are usually hidden, and meant it as the highest praise he knew how to give. She took his hand. He held it. She thought about a wrong number, a typing bubble, 7 seconds that had changed everything. She thought, the inside of things is the most important part. Someone should pay attention to it. She had. He had. And between the two of them, they had built something that looked from the outside like an unlikely story, but from the inside was the most solid thing either of them had ever stood in. She sent 3 words to the wrong number. He replied with the most honest sentence of his life. Neither of them recovered. Good. Drop wrong number. If Reina and Dante just broke something in you, because she didn't just find love. She found someone who answered her honestly when he didn't have to. I'm trying and I don't quit. Jess asked the question we were all thinking, and that was his answer. You draw the truth of things that are usually hidden. If this line hit different, you already know. Next week. She didn't send a wrong text. She sent the right one, to the one person she was never supposed to contact again. What happens when the person who broke you is the only one who can fix what breaks next? Subscribe now. You do not want to miss what's coming.